Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Pride, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath him. The blue and green sphere looked so fragile, so primitive. His mandibles clicked in amusement. The Galactic Council had sent him here with 70,000 of the finest soldiers from across the galaxy to bring this backwater planet into the fold. It would be over in days, perhaps hours. "Sir," his lieutenant chirped, her feathered crest rippling with excitement. "All drop ships are ready. The humans have no orbital defenses worth mentioning. Their military bases are clearly marked. Should we begin?" Zektar's 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he considered. The humans had been observed for decades. They still used projectile weapons, chemical propulsion, and hadn't even colonized their own moon properly. They fought among themselves constantly. The Council deemed them a minor species, barely worth the effort of conquest, but their planet's resources were valuable. "Send the first wave," he commanded. "Target their capital cities. Once they see our might, they'll surrender quickly." The first 10,000 soldiers descended in sleek drop pods, cutting through Earth's atmosphere like silver rain. Each soldier wore powered armor that could deflect primitive projectiles, carried plasma weapons that could vaporize a human in seconds, and had tactical displays showing every known human military position. In Washington, D.C., the pods crashed into the National Mall, sending tourists screaming. Soldiers emerged, their armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. They expected panic, surrender, perhaps some futile resistance. They did not expect what happened next. The first shot came from nowhere. A soldier named Grix, veteran of 12 planetary conquests, was addressing a crowd of terrified humans when his head simply disappeared. No warning, no energy signature, just a pink mist where his head used to be. His body stood for a moment, then toppled. "Sniper!" someone screamed in Galactic Common. "Take COV dash another shot." Another soldier down. Then another. Lieutenant Hecla Dove behind a monument, her tactical display showing nothing. No heat signatures, no energy weapons, nothing. Just her soldiers dying one by one. She peeked around the corner, trying to spot the shooter. Her head exploded. From a window 2 miles away, Master Sergeant Sarah Chun worked the bolt of her rifle smoothly. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They'd studied human military positions, but ignored civilian buildings. Every hunter, every sports shooter, every retired military personnel in the city had grabbed their rifles when the ships appeared. "Target down," she murmured into her radio. Displacing. She was already packing up, knowing the aliens would eventually figure out her position. But there were thousands like her. The aliens had expected to fight armies. They hadn't expected to fight a species where civilians owned 800 million firearms. In Moscow, the story was similar but worse for the invaders. Yuri Volkov, a grizzled veteran of Chechnya, had set up in an abandoned apartment building with 50 rounds and a rifle older than most of the aliens attacking Earth. He'd already dropped 6 of them, their fancy armor useless against a .50 caliber round moving at 3,000 feet per second. "They stand still," he muttered to his spotter, a teenager named Dmitri who'd volunteered when the ships appeared. Like they've never heard of cover. It was true. The Galactic Council's soldiers were trained for energy weapon combat, where cover meant energy shields and mobility meant jetpacks. They'd never faced an enemy that killed from beyond visual range with simple kinetic energy. Beijing was a slaughter. The Chinese military hadn't even engaged yet. Civilians with hunting rifles had already eliminated half the landing force. The aliens' drop pods had landed in Tiananmen Square, perfect killing fields surrounded by tall buildings. Every window held a rifle. Lieutenant Kovar tried to rally his troops, screaming for them to return to the pods. A construction worker with a bolt-action rifle put a round through his chest from 800 meters away. The aliens' medics couldn't understand the wound. No plasma burns, no energy residue, just a hole that their healing foam couldn't seal fast enough. Back on the Dominion's Pride, Zektar watched the tactical feeds in growing horror. His soldiers were dying by the hundreds, and the suit cameras showed nothing. No armies, no advanced weapons, just empty streets and sudden death. Analysis, he barked at his intelligence officer. "Sir, the humans are using projectile weapons. Primitive chemical-propelled metal slugs. But They're firing from extreme range, beyond our sensors' ability to detect without energy signatures. Impossible. Our armor dash was designed to deflect energy weapons and small caliber rounds, sir. These are larger, moving faster than we anticipated. And, sir, they're not military. These are civilians. Zektar's 6 eyes widened in disbelief. Civilians? The council sociologists had assured him humans kept their weapons restricted to military forces. How could civilians possess weapons capable of defeating council armor? In London, retired SAS operator James Mitchell had turned an office building into a killing floor. He'd trained 24 civilians in basic marksmanship in the hour since the ships appeared. Now they worked in teams, 1 shooter, 1 spotter, 1 loader. The aliens moved in predictable patterns, bunching up when under fire instead of dispersing. Remember, aim for the neck joints, he instructed calmly. The armor's weakest there. A young woman, an accountant until today, squeezed the trigger. An alien soldier, 900 meters away, crumpled. She worked the bolt, already looking for her next target. The fear had passed quickly, replaced by cold determination. These things had come to conquer Earth. Earth was fighting back. The first wave was in full retreat within 3 hours. Of 10,000 soldiers, less than 2,000 made it back to the drop pods. The rest lay dead in the streets, each killed by a single shot from an enemy they never saw. In rural Texas, Billy Thompson and his hunting buddies had set up on a ridge overlooking the aliens' landing zone. They brought coolers of beer, sandwiches, and enough ammunition to hunt deer for a month. But they weren't hunting deer today. Like shooting prairie dogs, Billy drawled, working his rifle's bolt. Except bigger. The aliens tried to adapt. They set up energy shields, but the kinetic rounds punched through. They called for orbital bombardment, but Zektar refused. The council wanted Earth's cities intact. They sent out patrols to find the snipers, but the humans knew their cities, their terrain. The aliens walked into ambush after ambush. In Tokyo, the Yakuza had distributed weapons to anyone who could shoot. Businessmen in suits lay on office building roofs, carefully squeezing off rounds between spreadsheet reviews. In Paris, hunting clubs turned the City of Light into a nightmare for the invaders. In Cairo, Berlin, Sydney, everywhere the aliens landed, they met the same invisible death. The second wave launched with 20,000 soldiers, this time with orders to level any building that might harbor snipers. But humans had learned from the first wave. They'd moved to the outskirts, setting up in industrial areas, parks, anywhere with long sight lines. The aliens' drop pods hadn't even landed before the shooting started. Humans have figured out the landing patterns, pre-positioned themselves. Soldiers died in their pods as armor-piercing rounds punched through the hulls. Commander Zektar watched his forces being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to fight conventionally. The Council had studied human wars, seen their armies clash with tanks and aircraft. But they'd missed something crucial. Humans had been perfecting the art of killing from a distance for centuries. Sir, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. The second wave is reporting 60% casualties and rising. The humans, they're not fighting like a military. They're fighting like what? Zektar demanded. Like predators, sir. Patient, invisible predators. In New York, Maria Santos had never held a gun before today. But her grandfather had taught her to shoot when she was young, and it came back quickly. She lay on a water tower, rain beginning to fall, watching aliens move through Central Park. Her rifle, borrowed from a sporting goods store, felt heavy but right. She breathed out slowly, squeezed the trigger. An alien officer fell, his subordinates scattering in panic. She was already moving, sliding down the ladder. Rule 1, her grandfather had said, never fire from the same position twice. The rain grew heavier, making the alien sensors even less effective. Humans had fought in every condition Earth could throw at them. The aliens, used to climate-controlled worlds and predictable battlefields, struggled with the mud, the wind, the reduced visibility. By nightfall of the first day, 30,000 alien soldiers were dead. The streets of Earth's cities were littered with bodies in advanced armor, each killed by technology centuries older than their equipment. The surviving aliens huddled in defensive positions, afraid to move, afraid to stay still. "We need to retreat," Lieutenant Valtor gasped over comms, rain streaming off his armor. "The humans, they're everywhere and nowhere. We can't fight what we can't see." Commander Zektar stared at the tactical displays, showing red dot after red dot winking out. Each dot was a life, a soldier who'd trained for years, equipped with the best technology the galaxy could offer. And they were being hunted down like animals by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's on all channels. Put it through." The image that appeared was of a human, middle-aged, wearing simple clothing. Behind him stood dozens more, all armed with primitive projectile weapons. When he spoke, it was translated into perfect Galactic common. "This is President Williams of the United States. I speak for all humanity when I say this. Leave now, and you get to live. Stay, and every man, woman, and child on this planet will make it their personal mission to kill you. We have 8 billion people, and more guns than you have soldiers. Do the math." The transmission ended. Zektar looked around his bridge at officers who'd conquered worlds, now trembling at the thought of facing an enemy that killed from the shadows. "Sir, your orders?" his lieutenant asked. Zektar thought of the 40,000 soldiers still in reserve, of the Council's expectations, of his reputation. Then he thought of the tactical feeds, the whisper of death that came from nowhere, the fact that they'd lost almost half their force to civilians in a single day. "We continue the assault," he said finally. "The Council demands victory." But as night fell over Earth, and his soldiers reported more deaths, sentries vanishing, patrols ambushed, officers picked off one by one, Zektar began to understand the true horror of their situation. They'd come to conquer a species of 8 billion. They'd forgotten that on Earth, evolution hadn't selected for the peaceful or the weak. It had selected for the survivors. And survivors knew how to kill. In a farmhouse in Nebraska, 60-year-old veteran Tom Mitchell cleaned his rifle and prepared for tomorrow. His neighbors were doing the same. The news said aliens had landed in the cities, but everyone knew they'd spread out eventually. When they did, they'd find an entire planet of humans who'd grown up learning that the best defense was to shoot first from as far away as possible. "Should have studied our history better," he muttered, loading rounds into magazines. "Should have learned what happens to folks who try to invade our home." The night was full of small sounds, the click of rifle bolts, the whisper of ammunition being counted, the quiet determination of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain and had no intention of giving up that position. Commander Zektar stood at his bridge viewport, looking down at the blue marble below. Somewhere down there, invisible in the darkness, 8 billion predators were preparing for tomorrow. He'd brought 70,000 soldiers to conquer Earth. He was beginning to realize it wasn't nearly enough. The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They'd studied humanity's weapons, their technology, their military forces. But they'd failed to understand the most important thing about humans. They were persistent hunters, patient predators who'd learned to kill from a distance long before they'd learned to write. And now 70,000 aliens were trapped on a planet with 8 billion of them. As the first day ended, the count stood at 30,000 alien dead, maybe a few hundred humans. The Council's finest soldiers, reduced to cowering in buildings, afraid of windows, afraid of open spaces, afraid of an enemy that killed without warning from impossible distances. Tomorrow would bring the third wave. 40,000 soldiers remaining, against 8 billion humans who were just getting started. In homes across Earth, rifles were cleaned, ammunition counted, positions planned. The aliens had expected to fight Earth's armies. Instead, they'd awakened something far more terrifying, the collective will of a species that had spent 200,000 years perfecting the art of killing from a distance. The hunt had only just begun. Dawn broke over a changed Earth. The alien bodies from yesterday's assault had been left where they fell, a deliberate message. In every major city, humans had spent the night preparing. What the aliens didn't understand was that they'd attacked a species that turned everything into weapons. Commander Sektor hadn't slept. His compound eyes were bloodshot, clicking nervously as he reviewed the overnight reports. 3,000 more soldiers dead during the night. Sentries picked off silently. Entire patrols vanishing without a trace. His forces controlled perhaps a dozen buildings in each city, islands of alien presence in an ocean of hostile humanity. Commander, his intelligence officer approached hesitantly. We've analyzed the human response patterns. It's unlike anything in our conquest protocols. Explain. Sir, when we conquered the Altarians, their military fought us in organized formations. The Betelgeusians surrendered after we destroyed their capital. Even the warlike vegans eventually accepted defeat. But the humans, every single one, seems to be fighting. Not as an army, but as individuals united in purpose. In Detroit, the automotive workers had spent the night with a different kind of assembly line. Marcus Johnson, a factory supervisor, had organized the creation of what they called alien traps. Simple, but effective steel cables stretched across streets at neck height, nearly invisible in the dawn light. The aliens' advanced sensors looked for energy weapons, explosives, technological threats. They didn't register simple steel wire. The first patrol to walk into one lost 3 soldiers before they realized what was happening. By then, rifle fire from surrounding buildings had taken 3 more. The survivors fled, leaving their dead behind. Like I tell my kids, Marcus said, watching through binoculars. Work smarter, not harder. The third wave launched at 0800 Earth time. 40,000 soldiers, the last of Zektar's invasion force. This time, they came prepared for snipers, or so they thought. Smoke grenade, tactical shields, dispersed formation. They'd studied human urban warfare tactics overnight. But humans have been preparing too. In London, the aliens landed in Hyde Park, using the open space to avoid the killing fields of narrow streets. They moved in disciplined formations toward the city proper, shields up, smoke deployed. They didn't notice the maintenance tunnels beneath the park. Didn't know that London's underground was more than just a transport system. When the charges went off, placed by construction workers who knew every inch of the city's bowels, entire squads vanished into sinkholes. Those who survived found themselves in darkness, in tunnels where their advanced armor became a liability, where humans who'd grown up playing in these spaces waited with shotguns and improvised explosives. Lieutenant Zarkeo survived the initial blast, pulling himself from the rubble. His tactical display was useless underground, his plasma rifle's targeting system unable to lock onto the shadows moving in the darkness. A sound behind him, he spun, fired wildly. Nothing. A sound to his left. He spun again. The construction worker's sledgehammer caught him in the side of the head. The armor held, but the kinetic force didn't care about advanced metallurgy. Zarkeo's neck snapped like a twig. Above ground, the remaining aliens found themselves in a new kind of hell. Humans had learned from yesterday. Why expose yourself when you could use technology? Drones, the kind anyone could buy from a store, buzzed overhead. Not military drones, just cameras with C4 strapped to them, piloted by teenagers from their bedrooms. Xbox prepared me for this, laughed Jamie Chun, 16 years old, as he dove his drone into a cluster of alien soldiers. The explosion scattered them, and hidden snipers picked off the survivors. In Moscow, the Russians had decided on a different approach. They'd spent the night moving something through the streets, something that made even hardened soldiers pause. When the aliens advanced down to Tverskaya Street, they found their path blocked by a monument to human stubbornness, a functional T-34 tank from World War II, pulled from a museum. Still runs, grinned the museum curator, a thin man named Pavel who'd spent 30 years maintaining the display. Grandfather drove one. Taught me everything. The aliens' plasma weapons could eventually melt through the ancient armor, but the tank's 76mm gun didn't care about energy shields. High explosive rounds, 70 years old, but still functional, turned advanced alien armor into scrap metal. When the tank finally died, Pavel and his crew were already gone, vanishing into the metro system where more surprises waited. Commander Zektar watched the feeds in growing desperation. His third wave was being torn apart, not by military forces, but by civilians using everything from hunting rifles to mining equipment. In Australia, someone had driven mining trucks into alien positions. In Japan, factory workers had rigged industrial robots to throw improvised explosives. In America, even the children were fighting, setting traps, acting as spotters, turning the invasion into a planet-wide resistance. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost contact with the Cairo force. Last transmission showed, sir, the humans drove locomotives into our positions. Locomotives filled with fuel oil." Zektar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Locomotives? These primitives were fighting with technology centuries old and winning. But worse was coming. Earth's actual militaries had been watching, learning, waiting. Now they struck. The first sign was radar interference over major cities. The aliens' technology could detect the most advanced stealth aircraft, but humans had learned something important yesterday. The aliens expected high-tech threats. They didn't expect crop dusters. Hundreds of small aircraft, the kind used for farming, appeared over alien positions, flying low, slow, almost insulting in their primitiveness. The aliens' targeting systems struggled to lock onto machines that puttered along at speeds their computers deemed impossible for threats. Then, the crop dusters released their payloads. Not advanced weapons, but simple chemistry, white phosphorus napalm, chlorine gas. War crimes by Earth standards, but Earth standards didn't apply to alien invaders. Lieutenant Hextall screamed as the white phosphorus burned through her armor seals. The substance couldn't be extinguished, couldn't be stopped. Around her, soldiers rolled on the ground, their million-credit armor useless against chemistry any human high school student could explain. "Chemical weapons," someone screamed over comms. "They're using chemical weapons." In Beijing, the military had finally engaged, but not how the aliens expected. Instead of tanks and missiles, they sent construction equipment. Bulldozers driven by soldiers plowed into alien positions, their simple mass and momentum devastating against troops trained for energy weapon combat. When plasma rifles finally stopped the machines, the drivers were already gone, and snipers were waiting for aliens to emerge from cover. The innovation spread quickly. In Tel Aviv, Israeli forces used fire trucks to spray aliens with petroleum, then lit them ablaze. In Mumbai, police used water cannons filled with industrial acid. Every city found its own solution, each more primitive and more effective than the last. "They're not fighting fair." Subcommander Kelvar gasped over comms, his unit trapped in a burning building in Berlin. The humans had chained the doors shut and set the structure ablaze. High-tech armor meant nothing when you cooked inside it. But the worst was psychological. The aliens began finding their dead arranged in patterns, messages spelled out in alien corpses. "Go home. Earth fights back." 70,000, not enough. In rural America, the aliens made a fatal error. Seeking to escape the cities, a force of 5,000 landed in farming country, expecting docile civilians. They found Vietnam veterans, Gulf War survivors, Afghanistan returnees, men and women who'd spent decades preparing for an invasion, just not knowing it would come from space. Jim Baker, 68 years old, had turned his farm into a killing field in 6 hours. Tripwires connected to shotguns, punji pits with steel spikes, and 3 generations of family members who could shoot the wings off a fly at 300 yards. They bunch up when scared, he explained to his grandson, lining up another shot. Just like deer. The comparison was apartment Earth's humans were persistence hunters, and now the hunt was on. Aliens who fled the cities found no safety in the countryside. Every forest held hunters who knew each tree. Every mountain had residents who could navigate in pitch darkness. Every desert had people who'd learned to survive where survival seemed impossible. By noon of the second day, the third wave was in full retreat. But retreat to where? The drop pods are destroyed or trapped. The humans had learned to predict landing zones, mining them, or simply waiting with .50 caliber rifles. In the command ship, Zektar faced mutiny. Officers who'd won glory across the galaxy demanded withdrawal. The casualty reports were catastrophic, 55,000 dead in less than 2 days. We can glass the planet from orbit, suggested War Master Trokdan. The Council wants the resources intact, Zektar reminded him, though his conviction wavered. What resources? Sir, respectfully, we can't hold a single building. The humans fight without centralized command. Kill one, 10 take their place. They use primitive weapons we can't properly track. They know their terrain intimately. This isn't conquest, it's suicide. Below, the killing continued. In Paris, fashion designers had created ghillie suits overnight, turning snipers invisible to alien sensors. In Tokyo, electronics hobbyists had figured out the frequency of alien communications and were broadcasting death metal at volumes that overloaded their audio systems. Psychological warfare at its most basic. But technology wasn't humanity's only advantage. It was their mindset. The aliens came from civilizations that had achieved peace, that fought wars with rules and honor. Humans fought to survive, and survival recognized no rules. Sarah Mitchell, the master sergeant who'd started the killing in Washington, had been busy. She'd organized what she called a sniper school, teaching basics to anyone who could hold a rifle steady. Her students ranged from accountants to zookeepers. Remember, she instructed, watching aliens move through a scope, they're used to energy weapons that cauterize wounds. They don't understand bleeding out. Aim for arteries. Her current class included a 12-year-old boy whose parents had been killed in the first attack. Too young to fight? Sarah had killed her first deer at 10. The boy's hands were steady, his eyes cold. The aliens had created their own worst enemies. The psychological impact on the invasion force was devastating. Soldiers refused to leave defensive positions. Officers couldn't maintain discipline. The best troops in the galaxy were being hunted by children, office workers, retirees. Their technology, their training, their pride, all useless against an enemy that turned their entire planet into a weapon. Sir, the medical officer reported to Zektar, we're seeing widespread psychological breakdown. Soldiers are refusing orders. Some are catatonic. They keep repeating about the silence before the shot, never knowing when death will come. In New York, the aliens had made a fortress of a UN building. Maria Santos and her new team had other plans. They'd spent the night studying the building's blueprints, freely available online. Every ventilation shaft, every maintenance tunnel, every weak point. Modern buildings are designed to breathe, explained Carlos, an HVAC engineer turned resistance fighter. All we need to do is help them breathe something different. The aliens detected no explosives, no energy weapons, no conventional threats as trucks pulled up to loading docks. Just cleaning supplies, industrial chemicals, the kind found in any city. Mixed properly, introduced into the ventilation system, they created chlorine gas. Advanced alien filtration systems could handle biological weapons, radiation, even some chemical agents. But chlorine gas was so primitive, so basic, it had never been considered. Soldiers died, choking on their own blood, their million-credit armor becoming tombs. The 15,000 aliens remaining from the third wave were scattered, demoralized, dying. Some tried to surrender, but to whom? There was no central human command, no one to negotiate with. Just 8 billion individuals who decided, independently, that these invaders needed to die. In rural China, farmers had herded aliens into a box canyon using nothing but noise and fire, ancient technique for driving wild animals. At the canyon's end waited a surprise, industrial mining explosives, the kind used to move mountains. The canyon walls came down, burying 300 alien soldiers under millions of tons of rock. Ancestors drove Mongols same way. Old Chin explained to his village, already planning the next trap. Different invaders, same solution. The creativity was endless, terrifying in its simplicity. In Brazil, locals had covered streets with oil, turning alien tactical movements into slapstick comedy that ended in sniper fire. In Egypt, engineers had reactivated ancient irrigation systems, flooding alien positions with Nile water that carried everything from industrial waste to crocodiles. By sunset of the second day, Zektar's invasion force was down to 12,000 effective soldiers. The rest were dead, wounded, or psychologically broken. His officers begged for orbital bombardment, for retreat, for anything but this continued nightmare. Sir, his intelligence officer delivered the worst news yet. The humans are organizing, not militarily, but informationally. They're sharing tactics globally in real time. What works in one city is implemented in others within hours. They're learning faster than we can adapt. It was true. The internet, which the aliens had dismissed as primitive communication technology, had become humanity's greatest weapon. Forums shared sniper positions, social media coordinated attacks, children posted drone footage that became tactical intelligence. 8 billion minds working on a single problem: how to kill aliens more efficiently. In London, a grandmother named Edith had become unexpectedly famous. Her knitting circle had developed a pattern for camouflage netting that defeated alien thermal sensors. The pattern spread globally in hours, and soon snipers everywhere were invisible to advanced detection systems. Killed my first Jerry in 1944, Edith explained to a reporter, needles clicking steadily. These ones are taller, but the principle's the same. Hit them where they're weak, don't let them rest. The comparison to historical invasions wasn't lost on humanity. Every occupied nation's history provided lessons. French resistance tactics, Vietnamese tunnel warfare, Afghan mountain fighting, centuries of guerrilla warfare knowledge applied against an enemy that expected stand-up fights. As darkness fell again, the aliens huddled in their remaining strongholds. Outside, the night belonged to humanity. Thermal sensors couldn't detect humans who'd learned to mask their heat signatures with mud and aluminum blankets. Motion sensors were useless when the entire population was in motion. The killing continued through the night. Aliens on watch duty vanished silently, garrotes and knives proving that advanced armor had to have joints, had to allow movement. Soldiers woke to find their squad mates dead. No wounds visible until they removed helmets to reveal crushed throats. "Ow!" Lieutenant Vector asked desperately, examining another dead sentry. How did they get so close? His sergeant, old by alien standards, had fought on 20 worlds. But he never faced anything like this. "Sir, they're not getting close. They never left. They've been here all along, waiting." It was true. Humans had infiltrated every alien position, hiding in walls, ceilings, floors. Patient hunters who could remain motionless for hours, days if necessary. The buildings the aliens thought secure were death traps filled with hidden enemies. By dawn of the third day, Commander Zektar faced the unthinkable. His invasion force of 70,000 had been reduced to under 8,000 combat-effective troops. They held no territory, controlled no resources, had achieved none of their objectives. Instead, they were trapped on a hostile world where every shadow held death. "Commander," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving another transmission from the humans." This time, it wasn't a president or general. It was a collection of faces, hundreds of them, from every nation, every age, every walk of life. When they spoke, it was in unison, their words translated into perfect galactic common. "You came to conquer Earth. You failed. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation. After that, we stop holding back." Holding back. Zektaris et whispered. They've been holding back? The transmission continued, showing footage the aliens hadn't seen. Military bases activating, missile silos opening, submarines surfacing. But worse were the civilians, millions upon millions, armed and ready. The cameras showed factories converting to weapon production, chemicals being mixed, vehicles being armored. Earth preparing for total war. 1 hour. The transmission repeated. Choose wisely. The bridge fell silent. Officers who'd conquered worlds, who'd never known defeat, stared at displays showing 8,000 traumatized soldiers facing a planet of 8 billion enemies who'd only just begun to fight. "Sir," his lieutenant prompted. Commander Zektar thought of the council, of his honor, of his legacy. Then he thought of the silence before the shot, the whisper of death that had claimed 62,000 of his soldiers. He thought of human creativity, their patience, their terrifying unity when threatened. "Begin evacuation," he ordered quietly. "All forces immediate withdrawal." The evacuation was a nightmare. Humans didn't stop killing just because the aliens were leaving. Every movement to reach extraction points was under fire. Soldiers died running for ships, cut down by invisible shooters. Dropships were crippled by rifle fire to engine components, crash landing to be swarmed by humans with improvised weapons. Of the 8,000 soldiers who began evacuation, less than 3,000 made it to orbit. The rest joined their comrades, bodies cooling on an alien world that had proved far from primitive. As the Dominion's Pride prepared to leave Earth orbit, Zektar received one final transmission. This time, it was a single human, an elderly man in military uniform. General Thompson, Earth Defense Command, the man introduced himself. A message for your Galactic Council. Earth is defended, not by our military, but by every human alive. Send 100,000 next time. Send 1,000,000. Send your entire fleet. The result will be the same. This is our world. We evolved here. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and each other. We're not prey. We are the apex predators of this world, and you've just learned why. The transmission ended with images, not of armies or weapons, but of ordinary humans. Children learning to shoot, grandmothers making ammunition, farmers maintaining rifles, office workers training with captured alien weapons. 8 billion predators, patient and ready. As the alien fleet limped away from Earth, Commander Zektar made his report to the Galactic Council. His recommendation was simple and would echo through galactic history. Quarantine Earth. Do not attempt contact. Do not attempt invasion. The humans are not a primitive species. They are something far more dangerous, a species that has mastered death itself. They have turned their entire world into a weapon, and every one of them into a soldier. 70,000 of our best could not conquer them. 7 million would not be enough. They are not like us. They are predators who have forgotten they were ever prey. On Earth, the cleanup began. Alien technology was studied, reverse-engineered, improved. The invasion had cost humanity less than 1,000 lives. It had cost the Galactic Council an entire invasion force, and, more importantly, the myth of their invincibility. In homes across Earth, rifles returned to closets and safes, but they were kept clean, kept ready. Children who'd acted as spotters went back to school with a new understanding of their heritage. Office workers returned to spreadsheets, but they kept the numbers of their sniper teams. Earth had sent a message to the galaxy, written in alien blood. We are humanity. We're 8 billion strong. We are armed, and we are waiting. The age of human space exploration was about to begin, and the galaxy would tremble. Because humans had learned something important from the invasion. They were very, very good at killing, and they were about to bring that talent to the stars. The Galactic Council chambers had never known such silence. Representatives from 300 civilized worlds sat in stunned disbelief as the testimony concluded. Commander Zektar, once the pride of the Council's military forces, looked broken. His 6 eyes refused to focus on any one point, a sign of deep trauma among his species. 3,000 survivors, the Prime Counselor repeated slowly. From 70,000. 2,937, Zektar corrected, his voice hollow. We lost more during the retreat. Some took their own lives rather than face another human rifle scope. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Suicide was unknown among the council races. They had evolved past such primitive responses to stress. Or so they believed. Surely there was some mistake, suggested the Altarian representative, her crystalline form chiming with distress. These humans used only projectile weapons? Chemical propulsion? No plasma, no directed energy, no antimatter. Projectiles, Zektar confirmed. Pieces of metal driven by chemical explosions. Technology we considered obsolete before we achieved spaceflight, but executed with a precision that. He paused, all 6 eyes closing. They killed Subcommander Hector from 4,300 meters. In high wind, through rain. The shooter was 14 years old. The chamber erupted. A child? Impossible. No civilized species would allow children near weapons. It violated every principle of advanced society. On Earth, That 14-year-old was back in school. Emma Patterson had inherited her grandfather's rifle and his steady hands. She'd also inherited his philosophy. Anyone comes for your family, you stop them. Distance don't matter. Age don't matter. You stop them. She'd stopped 3 aliens that day, each shot perfect despite the wind and rain. Her spotter had been her 12-year-old brother. They'd already built a hide for deer season. It worked just fine for aliens. The council's xenobiologist, a methane-breathing proximan, presented his analysis. The humans appear to be persistence predators. Their evolution favored those who could track and kill prey over vast distances. They developed projectile weapons as a natural extension of this hunting strategy. But more disturbing, he paused, his gaseous form roiling with distress. They enjoy it, not the killing itself, but the hunt, the challenge. Their brain chemistry rewards successful long-distance targeting with dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. They have turned death into a sport, practiced it for entertainment. What we witnessed wasn't war. It was 8 billion predators remembering what they were built to do. The military implications were staggering. Every council species had evolved past violence as they achieved civilization. Wars were fought with advanced technology at distances measured in light seconds, with computer-targeted weapons. The idea of personally aiming and firing a weapon was barbaric, primitive, unthinkable. But that primitive approach had destroyed the Council's best troops. Recommendations? The Prime Counselor asked. Quarantine, Zektar said immediately. Total and absolute. No contact, no trade, no communication. Mark the Sol system as a no-fly zone for all Council vessels. And pray to whatever deities we still remember that the humans never develop FTL technology. Surely they can be contained, the vegan representative argued. War was in their nature, but even they had evolved to fight with honor, with rules. If they develop spaceflight capabilities, we can blockade Dash. Zektar's laugh was bitter, broken. Contain them? Ambassador, we land in their major cities with overwhelming technological superiority. They killed us with weapons any human can purchase at what they call sporting goods stores. They turned industrial equipment into weapons. Children flew toys carrying explosives. Elderly humans who could barely walk could still shoot accurately at distances our computers struggled to calculate. He stood, all 6 legs shaking, and that was just their civilians. Their military never fully engaged. They watched, learned, waited. If we had stayed another day. He shuddered. They showed us mercy by allowing any evacuation at all. The Council voted unanimously for quarantine. The Sol system was marked with the highest danger classification in Council history. Navigation charts were updated with warnings in every known language. Stay away from Earth. Here be monsters. On Earth, the aftermath of the invasion became known as the 3-Day War, though historians argued it barely qualified as a war at all. More like pest control, some said. The alien technology left behind sparked a revolution in human engineering. Energy shields, plasma weapons, faster-than-light communication, all reverse-engineered within months by a species that had turned splitting atoms into weapons just decades after discovering they could be split. But humans didn't just copy alien technology. They improved it. See, their shields stop energy weapons just fine, explained Dr. Sarah Kim to her team at MIT, formerly Boston's premier technical university, now Earth's foremost Xenotech research center. But they never considered kinetic impacts at hypervelocity. So we combine our railgun technology with their power sources. The prototype punched through captured alien shields like tissue paper. The projectile, a simple tungsten rod, reached speeds that turned metal into plasma through friction alone. It was primitive by Council standards. It was devastating in human hands. Similar innovations happened globally. Russian engineers created bullets that could pierce dimensions, briefly existing in multiple realities to bypass any defense. Japanese scientists developed smart rounds that could calculate their own trajectories, adjusting in flight for maximum lethality. American weapon manufacturers, well, they just made everything bigger. But technology was only part of humanity's response. The psychological impact was profound. Humans had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew. They weren't alone, but they were apex. The galaxy was full of prey species that had forgotten how to fight, how to hunt, how to kill with personal investment in the act. Within 6 months, humanity had reverse-engineered FTL travel. Not the elegant, peaceful drives the Council used, but something distinctly human, a drive that punched holes in space-time through sheer violence, riding the shockwaves between dimensions. It was crude, dangerous, and impossibly fast. The first human ship to achieve FTL was naturally armed. The UES Persistence, built in secret collaboration between Earth's nations, carried weapons that merged human kinetics with alien energy technology. Railguns that fired plasma-wrapped tungsten at significant fractions of light speed. Missiles that could track targets across dimensional barriers. And, of course, a complement of snipers with rifles that could fire in vacuum, their bullets achieving impossible velocities without atmospheric resistance. The galaxy needs to know, President Williams announced at the ship's launch. Earth is no longer content to wait. We've been attacked once. It won't happen again. The Persistence will carry a simple message to any who would threaten our world. We are coming. The Council detected the FTL breach immediately. The signature was unlike anything in their databases, violent, aggressive, like space itself was screaming. Emergency sessions were called. Fleets were mobilized. Surely one ship, even a human ship, could be contained. They were wrong. The Persistence emerged in the Proxima system, humanity's nearest stellar neighbor. The Council had a monitoring station there, staffed by 50 scientists and a small security detail. The humans announced their presence with a broadcast in perfect galactic common. Proxima Station, this is Captain John Sullivan of a United Earth ship Persistence. We are here on a peaceful mission of exploration. Any aggressive action will be met with overwhelming force. You have seen what human civilians can do. Would you like to see what our military is capable of? The station surrendered immediately. No shots were fired. The security detail, veterans of dozens of pacification missions, threw down their weapons rather than face humans who had trained specifically to kill aliens. The scientists were treated well, interviewed extensively about galactic politics, technology, and especially about other species that might pose a threat to Earth. But what terrified them most wasn't the human weapons or their aggressive posture. It was their adaptability. Within hours of boarding, humans had figured out systems it had taken Council species decades to master. They didn't just learn, they improved, modified, optimized for efficiency and lethality. Your shields are impressive, Chief Engineer Rodriguez told a Proximan scientist. But they cycle at predictable intervals. See, if we time our shots to match the refresh rate. He demonstrated with a hand-built device, piercing the station's internal security barriers like they weren't there. Sorry about the damage. We'll fix that. Better, actually. Would you like to see? The humans didn't conquer the station. They befriended it. Within a week, the scientists were eagerly sharing information, partly from fear, but mostly from a disturbing fascination. Humans were terrifying, yes, but they were also charming, curious, eager to learn and share. They fixed broken systems, improved inefficient processes, and told stories of Earth that made the invasion sound like a minor misunderstanding. See, you came down shooting, Captain Sullivan explained over drinks he'd somehow synthesized from the station's food processors. That made you enemies. But we don't want enemies. We want friends. Friends who understand that Earth is off-limits unless invited. Friends who know what happens to those who threaten us. But still friends. Word spread through Council space at the speed of fear. The humans were out. One ship, but reports suggested more were being built. Many more. And they weren't conquering. They were exploring, learning, adapting. Each encounter taught them more about galactic weaknesses. The vegan empire, the Council's military backbone, decided to test human resolve. A fleet of 30 warships intercepted the Persistence near the Tau Ceti system. Admiral Krextor, hero of the Andromeda pacification, commanded from his flagship. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately for transport back to your quarantine system. Resistance will be met with destruction. Captain Sullivan's response was broadcast on all frequencies. Admiral, I'm going to give you one chance to reconsider. We have 6 snipers on board. Just 6. Would you like to know their effective range in vacuum? The Admiral scoffed. Projectile weapons in space? Without atmosphere? Without gravity to calculate? Impossible. He ordered his fleet to advance. The first shot came from 17,000 kilometers away, an impossible distance even by Council space combat standards. The tungsten round, accelerated to 20% of light speed by human rail technology, punched through shields, armor, and bulkheads before the Admiral even realized they were under fire. It missed him by meters, vaporizing his tactical officer instead. That was a warning shot, Sullivan broadcasted calmly. Our sniper Hannah-chun could have taken your head off, but we're trying to be civilized. Next shot won't miss. You move. 5 more shots followed in rapid succession, each from a different sniper, each devastating in its precision. Bridge officers died, critical systems were destroyed, all from a single human ship 17,000 kilometers away. The Vegas fleet, pride of the warrior species, was being picked apart by 6 humans with modified rifles. Retreat. Admiral Krextos claimed. All ships retreat. But retreating from human snipers in space was like running from death itself. The shots followed them, accurate across distances that made mockery of physics. 7 ships were crippled before they could jump to FTL, left drifting with precisely targeted damage to their drive systems. The message was clear. We could have killed you all. We chose not to. This time, the Persistence continued its tour of local space, each encounter reinforcing the same message. Humanity was no longer confined to Earth. They were explorers now, learners, adapters. And they were very, very good at killing anything that threatened them. On Earth, the success sparked a golden age of expansion. Ships rolled off production lines weekly, each incorporating lessons learned from the Persistence's encounters. The UES Endurance, Defiance, and Retribution followed, then dozens more. Each carried snipers, soldiers trained in personal combat, and weapons that merged human brutality with alien sophistication. But expansion wasn't just military. Human traders appeared in council markets, offering goods and services with disturbing efficiency. Human scientists joined galactic research stations, their insights often revolutionary. Human diplomats negotiated treaties with skills honed by millennia of tribal warfare. They're integrating, the Prime Counselor observed with growing alarm, learning our weaknesses, our dependencies, and they're so friendly about it. It was true. Humans were genuinely excited to meet new species, to learn about different cultures, to share their own. They brought gifts, food, art, technology. They told jokes, learned languages with disturbing speed, made friends. But always there was the underlying message. We are predators. We choose to be friends. Don't make us choose otherwise. The breaking point came when the Persistence encountered slavers in the Epsilon Eridani system. The Korvax syndicate had operated for centuries, taking sentience from primitive worlds to sell in council space. Slavery was technically illegal, but practically ignored, a distasteful necessity of galactic commerce. Humans had a different view. Captain Sullivan didn't negotiate, didn't threaten, didn't warn. The moment the situation was confirmed, he acted. The Persistence's snipers went to work with cold efficiency. Every slaver ship's bridge crew died in seconds, precise shots through viewports that should have been impenetrable. Boarding teams followed, armed with close combat weapons that made Council security forces look like children with toys. The liberation of the slave holds revealed hundreds of sentients from a dozen worlds. The humans' rage was palpable, controlled, but terrible. These weren't soldiers or warriors. They were farmers, scientists, children, prey species who couldn't defend themselves. We're taking them home, Sullivan announced to the system. All of them. Anyone who objects is welcome to discuss it with our snipers. No one objected. The freed slaves spread word through the galaxy. Humans, the terrible predators who had slaughtered Council forces, had risked their lives to save strangers. They'd been gentle with the victims, providing medical care, food, comfort. Then they'd systematically hunted down every slaver in the system with ruthless efficiency. They protected us, a young Altarian told her home world. The humans, they said no one should be prey, that thinking feeling beings deserve freedom. Then, they killed everyone who disagreed. The dichotomy broke council understanding. Humans were killers who valued life, predators who protected the weak, warriors who preferred peace but excelled at war. They defied every model of civilization the galaxy had developed. Within a year, human influence had spread through a dozen systems. Not through conquest, but through respect and fear. Pirates vanished from shipping lanes, unwilling to risk encountering human patrols. Slavers abandoned their trade rather than face human justice. Even legitimate military forces avoided confrontation, remembering the vegan fleet crippled by 6 humans with rifles. "We need to adapt," urged the new vegan representative, the previous one having resigned in shame. "The humans are changing the balance of power, not through force, but through example. Species are beginning to rearm, to train, to think like predators again. If we don't evolve, we'll be left behind." But evolution was slow, and humans were fast. Each month brought new innovations. Bullets that could think, plan, adjust their path for maximum psychological impact. Sniper rifles that could fire through folded space, hitting targets in other star systems. Close combat techniques that turned human bodies into weapons more dangerous than any plasma blade. The real change came when other species began requesting human training. The Altarians, pacifists for millennia, asked for instruction in marksmanship. The Proximans wanted to understand human tactics. Even the proud vegans swallowed their pride and sought human military advisors. "It's simple," Gunnery Sergeant Martinez explained to a class of mixed species on a human training station. "You've forgotten how to be personal about killing. You let machines do it for you. But machines don't have instinct. They don't have the drive to survive. They don't get that moment of perfect clarity when the shot lines up just right." He demonstrated with an antique rifle, the kind that had killed thousands during Earth's invasion. The target, a simulation of council armor, exploded at 2,000 meters. See? No computer assistance. No targeting AI. Just breathing, patience, and the desire to protect what's yours. That's what makes humans dangerous. We never forgot that killing is personal. The galaxy was changing. Species that had been prey for millennia were remembering they had claws. Civilizations built on peace were rediscovering their warrior past. And at the center of it all were humans, 8 billion predators who had decided the galaxy needed to remember how to bare its teeth. The Galactic Council met in emergency session as reports poured in. Border disputes were being settled with sniper duels. Trade negotiations included demonstrations of marksmanship. The humans hadn't conquered anything, but their influence was everywhere. "They're making the galaxy dangerous again," the Prime Counselor observed. "No," corrected Zektar, who had become something of an expert on human psychology. "They're reminding the galaxy it was always dangerous. We just forgot. The humans never did." Outside the council chambers, human traders sold rifle scopes to Altarian merchants. Human soldiers taught Proximan youth how to shoot. Human diplomats negotiated treaties with clauses about mutual defense that hadn't been seen in council space for centuries. Earth's message to the galaxy was spreading, one perfectly aimed shot at a time. "We are humanity. We're your friends. But we are predators, and we will teach you to be predators too. Because the universe is dark and full of threats, and only those who can kill from a distance will survive." The age of galactic pacifism was ending. The age of the sniper had begun. The distress signal reached Earth at 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. It wasn't from any human ship or ally. It came from the Galactic Council itself, the same body that had quarantined Earth just 18 months ago. The message was simple, desperate, and completely unexpected. "Humanity, we need your help. The Devourers have returned." In the Earth Defense Command, Admiral Rebecca Thompson read the message twice. The Devourers, a semi-mythical threat that had destroyed civilizations eons ago. The Council had assured everyone they were gone, extinct, a cautionary tale from prehistory. "Give me the President," she ordered, "and mobilize everything that can fly and shoot." The images that followed the distress call were horrifying. Worlds stripped bare, populations consumed, Entire fleets reduced to floating debris. The Devourers weren't conquerors or slavers. They were locusts on a galactic scale, consuming everything organic, leaving only dead rocks behind. The Council's mighty fleets, those same forces that had tried to subjugate Earth, were being systematically destroyed. Energy weapons barely scratched the Devourers' biometallic hides. Plasma rounds were absorbed and converted to energy. The civilized galaxy's advanced weapons were useless. But humans had never been civilized. Within hours, Earth's response was mobilizing. Not just military ships, but civilian vessels, trader crafts, even modified cargo haulers. Every human who could hold a rifle volunteered. The same species that had repelled invasion with hunting weapons now prepare to defend their would-be conquerors. Why should we help them? Senator Davies asked during the emergency session. They tried to invade us. President Williams stood slowly, his voice carrying the weight of decision. Because that's what predators do. We protect our territory. And now the whole galaxy is our territory. The first human fleet to respond wasn't military. It was a collection of mining ships from the asteroid belt, crews who'd spent years perfecting the art of cracking rocks with precision charges. They arrived at the Proxima system to find a devourer hive cluster consuming the remains of the monitoring station where humans had made first contact. "Well, boys," Captain Mike Demolition Davis announced to his crew, "looks like we got some pest control to do." The miners didn't have advanced weapons. They had mining charges, industrial lasers, and the kind of creative brutality that came from working dangerous jobs in space. They also had Lu Chun, whose grandmother had been one of Beijing's deadliest snipers during the invasion. Their shells are thick. Lu observed through his scope a modified mining laser with human targeting systems. But they got joints, eyes, soft spots, just like everything else that lives. The first shot took out what passed for a Devourer's optical cluster from 12,000 kilometers. The creature, the size of a city block, writhed in space, suddenly blind. Mining charges followed, placed with the same precision miners used to extract precious metals without damaging them. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. "One down," Davis grinned. "About 1 million to go." But humanity's real response was still coming. The combined Earth fleet, 57 ships strong, emerged from FDL at the edge of vegan space, where the Empire's capital was under siege. Admiral Thompson commanded from the UES Vengeance, humanity's first purpose-built warship. The sight that greeted them was apocalyptic. The vegan fleet, 300 strong, was down to scattered remnants. The Devourers, countless bio-ships ranging from fighter-size to dreadnought-class monstrosities, swarmed over the planet's defenses. "All ships, all frequencies," Thompson broadcast. "Vegan forces, this is Admiral Thompson of Earth. We're here to help. Recommend you fall back, and let's show you how humans deal with pests." Admiral Krextor, the same who'd fled from human snipers, responded with disbelief. "You brought 57 ships against millions of Devourers." 57 ships, Thompson confirmed, and 12,000 snipers. Stand back and watch. The human fleet didn't charge, didn't close to energy weapon range. They stopped at maximum standoff distance and went to work. Every human ship bristled with railguns, kinetic weapons, and, most importantly, firing positions for snipers. In vacuum, without atmosphere to slow them down, human rifles achieve velocities that turn simple bullets into relativistic weapons. Tungsten rounds accelerated to 20% of light speed hit with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. And humans have been practicing in space for over a year. Sarah Chun, granddaughter of the legendary DC sniper, lined up her first shot. The rifle, a masterpiece of human engineering, was longer than she was tall. The scope showed a Devourer warrior form, kilometers away, moving to attack a crippled vegan cruiser. She breathed out slowly, just as her grandmother had taught her. In space, there was no wind, no gravity to account for, just pure physics and the human ability to calculate death across impossible distances. The shot took the Devourer's head off. The creature's body, driven by residual nerve impulses, continued forward for moments before going still. Sarah was already tracking her next target. Across the human fleet, 12,000 snipers went to work with mechanical precision. The Devourers, used to swarming tactics and close combat, found themselves dying by the hundreds without ever reaching weapon range. Each human sniper was choosing targets carefully, leader forms, specialized units, anything that looked important. Ow! A vegan officer asked, watching the tactical display in amazement. How can aim so precisely at such distances? Because, Krextor said quietly, remembering his humiliation, they've been doing this since before they discovered fire. We evolved past personal combat. They perfected it. But sniping was only part of humanity's response. The Devourers began adapting, using smaller forms, random movements, shield creatures to protect important units. So the humans adapted too. All right, Plan B, Admiral Thompson announced. Release the kindergarten. From the cargo bays of human ships came a sight that made even hardened vegan warriors pause. Thousands of small craft, barely more than engines with cockpits, piloted by humans in basic spacesuits. Each carried a single weapon, modified hunting rifles, ancient slug throwers, some literally antiques from Earth's wars. The pilots were civilians. Teachers, office workers, retirees. Anyone who could shoot and wasn't afraid to die. They swarmed toward the Devourers in seemingly chaotic patterns, each pilot choosing targets independently. The Devourers, faced with thousands of individual threats instead of organized formations, couldn't adapt fast enough. Their hive mind tactics, perfect against traditional fleets, crumbled against human individualism. Each human fought as a lone predator, making decisions faster than any collective intelligence could process. Emma Patterson, the 14-year-old who'd killed Subcommander Hector 2 years ago, was now 16 and piloting a craft her high school shop class had built. She weaved between Devourer bio ships, her grandfather's rifle welded to her craft's hull. Just like shooting clay pigeons, she muttered, lining up on a Devourer spawn carrier. If clay pigeons were the size of buildings and try to eat you. The shot penetrated the carrier's birth sac, spilling thousands of premature Devourer larvae into the void. Emma was already moving 3 warrior forms on her tail. She led them straight into the firing line of a U.S. Persistence, whose point defense guns turned them into organic confetti. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human casualties mounted. The kindergarten pilots were vulnerable, their craft unshielded. But for every human that fell, hundreds of Devourers died. And more humans kept coming. The second wave arrived from Earth's colonies. Mars, Luna, the Belt Stations. These weren't military either. They were farmers with railguns, mechanics with modified tools, children with their parents' rifles. The same spirit that had defended Earth now defended the galaxy. My God, the vegan emperor whispered, watching from his bunker. They're all insane. Every last one of them. No, corrective. They're predators. And they've decided we're part of their pack now. It was true. Human comm channels were full of chatter about protecting the locals and our new neighbors. The same species that had killed without mercy when invaded were now dying to protect their former enemies. Because that's what apex predators did. They protected their territory and everyone in it. The battle turned when humanity revealed their true innovation. The Devourers communicated through bio-quantum entanglement, a hive mind that couldn't be jammed or hacked. Or so they thought. Dr. Sarah Kim, the MIT scientist who'd first reverse-engineered alien shields, had spent months studying Devourer remains. She discovered something remarkable. The hive mind was just another network, biological instead of digital. And humans had been hacking networks since they'd invented them. Fire the Whisper round, Admiral Thompson ordered. A single, specially modified bullet launched from the Vengeance's main railgun. It moved at 50% light speed, carrying not explosives, but a payload of engineered viruses and quantum transmitters. It struck the largest Devourer form, what analysts believed was a command node. The effect was immediate and devastating. The virus, designed by humans who'd turned biological warfare into an art form, didn't kill Devourers. It made them individuals. For the first time in their species' history, each Devourer was alone in its own mind, cut off from the collective. The panic was visible even across space. Devourers turned on each other, unable to coordinate, unable to function without the hive mind. Some fled in random directions. Others simply stopped, floating helpless, minds unable to cope with individual consciousness. Now Thompson commanded, "All snipers, fire at will. Make it clean." The slaughter that followed was almost merciful. Confused, isolated devourers were picked off with surgical precision. The human snipers, each choosing targets independently, demonstrated why individual consciousness was evolution's greatest weapon. No hive mind could match thousands of human brains, each calculating death from their own unique perspective. Within an hour, the siege of the vegan homeworld was over. The remaining devourers fled in disorder, some still fighting each other, their perfect unity shattered by human biological warfare. As rescue operations began, the vegan emperor himself came aboard the Vengeance. He was old, proud, ruler of the galaxy's premier warrior race. He knelt before Admiral Thompson. "We were wrong," he said simply. "We called you primitive, barbaric. We were wrong." Thompson helped him to his feet. "You weren't wrong. We are barbaric. We just learned to use it productively. Now, let's talk about mutual defense treaties. I have a feeling the Devourers will be back, and next time they'll be ready for us." "What could I do differently?" the Emperor asked. Thompson smiled grimly. "Adapt. Evolution doesn't stop. They'll come back as individuals, or with shields against biological warfare, or with weapons that work at sniper range. And when they do, we'll adapt too. That's what predators do." The aftermath of the battle changed the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council didn't just lift Earth's quarantine. They begged humanity to join as a full member. Species that had looked down on humans as primitives now sought their protection, their training, their friendship. But more importantly, humanity's example spread. The Altarians began developing their own sniper traditions, their crystalline bodies perfect for stillness. The Proximans adapted human tactics to their gaseous forms, becoming invisible killers in the void. Even the proud vegans swallowed their pride and asked for human instructors. "You've militarized the entire galaxy," the Prime Counselor observed during the treaty negotiations. "No," President Williams corrected. "We've reminded the galaxy that survival requires teeth. The Devourers won't be the last threat. There are worse things in the dark between stars. Things that see civilization as weakness, peace as opportunity. We survived them on Earth by never forgetting how to kill. Now you'll survive them too." The first Galactic Sniper Academy was established on Earth's moon, jointly staffed by human instructors and alien students. The entrance exam was simple: hit a target at 1,000 meters with iron sights. Most aliens failed initially. Within a year, they were hitting targets at 10 times that distance. Emma Patterson, now 18, became the youngest instructor in the Academy's history. Her class included princes, warriors, scientists, beings who'd never held a weapon, learning from a human who'd been killing since childhood. "Remember," she told them, echoing her grandfather's words, "it's not about the weapon. It's about the mindset. You're not shooting at a target. You're reaching out across space and touching something with death. Make it personal. Make it count." The galaxy was transforming. Trade routes once plagued by pirates were now patrolled by mixed-species sniper teams. Planets that had been defenseless developed militia traditions. The weak learned to be strong. The peaceful learned to be dangerous. And when the Devourers returned, evolved and adapted as Thompson had predicted, they found not one world of predators, but hundreds. The galaxy had learned humanity's lesson. When threatened, every citizen became a soldier. Every tool became a weapon. Every mind calculated trajectories of death. The Second Devourer War lasted 3 days. The hive mind had developed shields against biological warfare, armor against kinetic weapons, tactics against long-range engagement. They had not developed a defense against 300 species, all fighting like humans, individually, creatively, personally. In the aftermath, as rebuilt worlds celebrated and new alliances formed, a monument was erected on the vegan homeworld. It showed a human sniper and a vegan warrior standing back to back, weapons ready. The inscription, in every language of the Galactic Council, was simple: "To Earth, Who taught us that civilization means having the strength to choose peace and the will to choose war? Who showed us that true evolution keeps one eye on the scope? Who reminded us that in a universe full of predators, only predators survive? But the real monument was in the children across the galaxy learning to shoot, the adults maintaining weapons they hoped never to use, the species once prey, now standing watch against the dark. Humanity had given the galaxy its greatest gift, the knowledge that peace was something you earned with steady hands and clear sights. On Earth, life continued much as before. Farmers farmed, teachers taught, children played. But rifles remained clean and ready in closets and safes. Practice ranges stayed busy. Every human knew that somewhere in the galaxy, other threats waited, evolved, adapted, hungry. And when they came, humanity would be ready. 8 billion snipers, patient and watchful, teaching the universe that Earth was defended, the galaxy was defended, and anyone who threatened their pack would learn why humans had survived everything their world and the universe could throw at them. They were persistence predators. They were patient hunters. They were humanity, and they never missed. 10 years had passed since humanity saved the galaxy from the devourers. 10 years of unprecedented change, growth, and evolution. The Galactic Council now included humanity not just as members, but as the unofficial guardians of civilization. But evolution never stopped, and new threats were emerging from the dark. Admiral Sarah Chun, promoted after her legendary performance in the Devourer Wars, stood on the bridge of humanity's newest creation, the UES Darwin. It wasn't just a warship. It was a mobile academy, hospital, factory, and fortress, 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, and carrying 30,000 humans trained in every form of combat humanity had perfected. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "We're receiving distress signals from the Andromeda expedition. Something's wrong out there." The Andromeda expedition had been humanity's gift to the galaxy, a joint exploration mission to the neighboring galaxy, crewed by the best of every species. 300 ships, 50,000 souls, searching for new worlds and new life. They've been gone 2 years. What kind of wrong? Chen asked, though her instincts already knew. Prédateur reconnaissent de danger. The message is fragmented, but we're getting words like gods transcended and surrender. And, Admiral, they're asking specifically for human snipers. Chen smiled grimly. In 10 years, human sniper had become the galaxy's prayer for salvation. When the ancient AI collective had awakened and tried to digitize all organic life, human snipers had shot out their quantum processors from half a system away. When the space whales of Sigma Draconis had gone mad and attacked shipping, human snipers had put them down with merciful precision. "Set course for Andromeda," she ordered. "Maximum burn. And wake up the Old Guard." The Old Guard were humanity's secret weapon. Veterans of the Earth invasion, now in their 70s and 80s, kept alive by alien medical technology, but still preferring their ancient rifles. They'd seen everything, killed everything, and their hands never shook. Among them was Tom Mitchell, the Nebraska farmer who'd prepared for invaders that never reached his land. Now 91, his eyes enhanced with Altarian crystals, his reflexes maintained by proximate treatments, he was deadlier than ever.